So welcome to the first community coffee and chat session of 2025. My name is Kristin. I am the moderator for the Community Engagement Forum, which is a community of practice under the CCCM cluster, the Global CCCM cluster, specifically looking at community engagement in displacement responses. Our purpose is to share resources and experiences and challenges and best practices, top tips, tools on community engagement in displacement responses, so we can all provide a better response to the people that we work for, the displaced. One of the ways that we do that is through these monthly community coffee and chat sessions on different subtopics, should I say, on community engagement. And this time we'll focus specifically on the community engagement aspect in the global new CCCM strategy. So I'm going to hand over to Ruxandra Bujor from the Global CCCM cluster, and she will introduce this to us.
Thank you very much, Kristin, and nice to see everyone. Always great to see the interest in community engagement. I hope everyone hears me okay. Thank you. I'll just start by presenting a little bit of the process and slightly some content if you haven't already familiarized yourself with the latest CCCM global strategy. It was launched fairly recently, so this is one of the many occasions where the community will have a chance to go into depth into the content. Today, specifically on community engagement, there are many components which are fairly, I guess, either innovative or rather new as compared to our previous approach. And so we do hope that given the fact that it was developed through a very collaborative process, a lot of consultations were held from actually 2023 on to 2024 to develop the content and to hear from especially practitioners and people on the ground in the field. I do really hope that the latest developments will be taken into consideration when applying CCCM and basically a bit of a refreshed way of thinking and implementing. Just to get you a little bit more familiar, so as I was saying, there was quite a lot of engagement and consultations to formulate the strategy, and that was also composed by additional surveys, workshops, a lot of stakeholder meetings, all advised by the Global Advisory Group, Strategic Advisory Group, essentially in alignment with two global high-level guidance streams. The high-level panel on IDPs, I hope you probably are quite familiar with it, and the independent review on humanitarian response, the one that was carried out at YASC level. Both of these had very specific recommendations, generally for the humanitarian response, and then some also for the CCCM cluster in particular, which was quite interesting. One of the recommendations of the independent review was related strictly to CCCM and our mandate, which was recommended and is taken very well into account to this new strategy, referring to our mandate, which should be expanded beyond camps to encompass coordination and management of formal and informal collective IDP sites. Additional to that, there was a recommendation with regards to several really, but one specific with regards to IDP voices and their aspirations and their capacities being heard and mainstreamed throughout humanitarian responses in the system, really. and the recommendations with regards to specifically the establishment of IDP representative bodies. So some of these were, of course, some of the guiding principles of our new strategy. But moving forward, essentially, we wanted to have the strategy, first of all, align with these recommendations, but also look at aspects like working purposefully across sectors. Thank you. Focus a bit more in depth on durable solutions from the start, protection and inclusion of vulnerable groups, aspects of related to alternatives to camps, community engagement and local leadership, and of course the aspect that we're all very familiar with, specifically informed, flexible, area-based and collaborative responses. And so to do that, the vision mission got a little bit of a refresh as well. Now the vision of the cluster globally is formulated as such: communities affected by or at risk of displacement have their rights and dignity respected, and access to assistance, information, protection, and solutions they require, with the mission focusing on the cluster engages and empowers affected communities to access assistance and seek solutions to displacement. And the cluster works with all stakeholders to ensure effective and accountable service delivery and safe and dignified living environments. And so with regards to that, another very important notable piece of the formulation of our strategy emphasizes where we work, meaning, as you've heard, we have a bit of a nuance to orientation. So detailing the fact that we equally work in planned camps as in self-settled sites, collective centers, reception centers, evacuation transit, but also that in some contexts the cluster adopts or includes area-based site management. Again, we have a position on camps that is very well formulated, also for clarity for our partners and generally colleagues, stating that of course, the establishment of planned camps is the prerogative of national authorities. And the cluster will take and does take a comprehensive approach to displacement, always considering planned camps as a last resort, advocating for or to authorities for alternatives to camps, planned ones, and if established, we help mitigate the negative effects of such locations. Essentially, sorry, thank you. Whether in planned camps or self-settled site displacement, communities living in collective centers demonstrate acute needs that the cluster has an imperative to respond to, essentially outlining our position with regards to planned camps. And again, clarifying for all stakeholders our mandate. Now, with regards to strategic priorities, as I've already kind of alluded to, this would be looking at essentially 4 components: greater agency of displaced affected communities to shape humanitarian responses, accelerated localization through ownership and decision-making, increased pathways to solutions for displaced communities, and comprehensive responses to displacement crises that promote alternatives to camps. And so you would already have recognized that throughout these the main strategic 4 priorities, community engagement is a key component. Now, to do that, we would have this broken down into key areas of focus, 8 to be specific: alternatives to camps, solutions from the start, community engagement specifically, local leadership, safe and dignified environments, adapting to climate change, working across sectors, and informed responses. And so again, these are the 8 strategic key areas of focus. However, you probably would have noted that even though community engagement is a specific component of its own in, I would say, all of these 8 key areas of focus, there is an essential aspect of community engagement to be able to implement it. However, with respect to the standalone, so to speak, community engagement focus that we maintain, the key directions are fairly straightforward. Essentially, again, looking at engaging and mobilizing communities, such as contributing to work as a primary interlocutor between displaced communities and the humanitarian community, involving the communities in their diversity and design, implementation and monitoring of the cluster's interventions, as well as consulting them on their needs, aspirations, and actions. Establish and strengthen community structures and capacity that enable other sectors to connect with communities to inform design, implementation, and monitoring of interventions. Collaborate with other sectors to ensure coordinated and harmonization of community engagement at site level, which is a very important new aspect. However possible, connect communities to existing governance mechanisms ahead of creating duplicate ones, site level governance essentially. Prioritize capacity strengthening for displaced communities, supporting them to express their own needs, identify their preferred solutions, take steps forwards towards self-reliance, and advocate for support. Additional to that, I'd like to mention 3 points that look at specifically protection mainstreaming with regards to community engagement related to again, the strategic direction of the cluster moving forward, but more specifically, contribute to prioritizing inclusive approaches that address the specific needs and risks of vulnerable populations, including women, children, youth, persons with disability, and older persons. This will essentially involve strengthening capacity, protection mechanisms, mitigating the risks of gender-based violence, supporting gender equality and the promotion of participation and representation of marginalized groups in decision-making. Additionally, advocate and support IDPs in claiming their rights and to safe and dignified return, local integration, or resettlement as appropriate. Ultimately, upholding the centrality of protection and continuing to advocate for safer and dignified responses for all, including most at-risk marginalized groups. Again, as I've mentioned, these are the specific components of the community engagement aspect in the renewed strategy. However, across the multitude of areas of focus that the strategy has, there is an intrinsic community engagement component. We're discussing this specifically today because it is one of the, if I may say, one of the most noteworthy components of the strategy, reinforcing the implementation of CCCM activities as a package. Essentially, again, while we do have, of course, different distinguishable areas of focus, again, I can't stress enough how community engagement should be emphasized throughout. With that, I'll hand it back over to you, Kristen. Thank you.
Thanks very much for setting this whole discussion in perspective and just emphasizing how important the community engagement aspect is going forward the next 4 years for the cluster. And I also want to just point out, in the very strange times that we're in with everything that has happened in Washington, D.C. And it's great to see that so many of you have taken the time to join today because, community engagement, yes, it's our ultimate goal is accountability towards the displaced populations. But it's not just about accountability and an appropriate response. Community engagement also helps ensure a sustainable response. And when we lose access to the displaced populations that we serve, we see that we really, really see the impact of community engagement and where community engagement has been successfully implemented before we lost access. I was part of a research team in 2020 where we produced a report on engaging communities during a pandemic. And we saw this very clearly, that where community engagement had been done specifically and done well as part of the response before the pandemic hit, there were trained displaced representatives and networks that could continue the response when we could not access. So just to focus on how this is very important always, and also going forward now in this, again, unprecedented times. But a lot has been done already, so I just want to mention what has been done by us, by the Community Engagement Forum, since we formally became a community of practice under the CCCM cluster in 2022. So, I mean, we have developed a few guidelines on request from the members. One of them is a document that defines community engagement for us within the community of practice. And it's based on consultation with the members of all the agencies in the community of practice, so in the Community Engagement Forum. And it's a very practical document that provides I mean, the definition, and also just some explanations on terminology that are used, and some practical examples of what this can look like in our programming. We have also developed other key resources like the community-led project tip sheet, which has collected the best practices and the top tips and experiences from experts who have experienced the challenges of implementing and planning community-led projects, and how they have addressed these challenges. And we've collected this all in the tip sheet, and you can find it in many different languages. So, I mean, just I suppose just creating these platforms and these modalities for sharing. So we have our website, we have our forum on groups.io that is interactive, where you can ask questions and ask for resources and share new resources. We have these community and chat sessions where we can share challenges and new guidance and any experiences that we want to discuss with other experts in the field. You can go online to any of these the groups.io or our website and search for resources on community engagement in displacement. So just creating this network, I think, is also a big achievement, because there's a lot done everywhere, and just making it available and accessible to practitioners is fantastic. And we're also developing a training specifically on community engagement in CCCM responses for field practitioners. So it's a training package going over 3 days, focusing on how CCCM practitioners in country operations can ensure community engagement, like using practical tools and exercises in our programming. With that, I want to give the floor to some of these experts and let them share how. So first, I'll hand over to Emma Berkhout. I'm probably mispronouncing your last name. Sorry, Emma. The area manager of ACTED from Cox Bazar, and she will share some examples of how they have practically engaged the displaced in their CCCM responses. So Emma, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
I can hear you.
Thank you, Kristen. Right, yes, thank you. I'd like to share some of our examples of community engagement. I realize there's a lot of different forms and we use the word for a lot of different things. So let me explain 3 of our big at the moment. So the first one I'd like to share is the community-led project that we have and other people. We do small construction works in the camps and they are selected, prioritized, and also executed by the community. You can think of repairs of bridges, of pathways and stairs that are in the camps. And by going into the neighborhood, they really decide together around their houses biggest needs, and they select and they prioritize. And the ones that end up highest in the priority, we provide the materials and make sure that we have work based on cash flow. Another really nice, more social initiative is done by our community. They come together every month and they think of happening in the camp or that they want to.
Excuse me, Emma, are you able to go closer to your microphone, or yes, we can hear you, but it'd be great to hear you better.
All right, let me change to my other. Is this better?
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Now go for me. All right. Wait, I need my microphone here. Now we're good, I think. All right. The second one is more sort of social initiative. So our community groups, they gather every month and they come up with initiatives that they want to organize. So like in December, we had a really nice event where we did storytelling. Or not we, like they. So the elderly and the women, they did storytelling for the children in the camp. And they talked about Myanmar, their home country, and they talked about the culture, the history, and the day-to-day life there in their own country to make sure that that story doesn't get lost. Those are nice initiatives that we do too. A second big example, I think, is the responsibility we have within CCCM for the large natural stream that flows through the camp. It's a sort of a big river, actually. We have been trying to keep it clean and clear because there's a lot of risk for flooding during the monsoon season, but also, of course, for diseases that, well, like dengue and malaria, that have a good chance there in the streams. For a while, we tried to do all the work ourselves. We did the plantation and the cleaning, but we realized it really didn't work. So materials kept being stolen. The stream was never clean. So what we did, we completely changed our programming and we really started working on engaging the community fully and really also giving something back ownership-wise. So we started women and youth groups, and they are consisting of people living around the streams, and they're self-proclaimed activists. But now these groups, so we train them, give them some materials, but they are now going around in our neighborhoods and they are the ones educating their neighbors. They're explaining the necessity of keeping the streams clean. They support also their neighbors with growing vegetables and fruits around the stream. So it also makes it more important for everyone to keep it clean. So it might be slightly too early to say it has a lasting effect, but we've seen a huge difference also in the way that the community looks at the stream and the work that's been done around the stream. So this for me is a good example also of engaging the community. The last type is more focused maybe on resilience. So as Kristen also said, but we see, of course, a decrease of the funds, and we need, and we also want to provide more tools and skills to the Rohingya to make sure that they can be their own first responders in case of emergencies. We've seen them doing it after the cyclone we had in April, and also after the revolution we had here in Bangladesh in July, August, when we weren't able to go to the camps. They have taken the lead and they've done quite a lot of work on their own. One very important initiative that we are also supporting is the fire response in the camps. It's a huge camp and it's very densely populated, and often there's no space for bigger trucks and fire trucks to go to the camp. You can imagine all the small alleys that go through the camp. And together with the community, a tailored response was designed. So how we can do the fire response in those kind of areas and situations, also combined with equipment they might need. So the big fire trucks, they don't work. So they needed different approaches like tuk-tuks that maybe some of you know, equipped with big pumps and water basins so that they could go and help for the fire response. In each camp, we have like 100 volunteers that are trained twice a year, and they're the ones also taking care of the equipment. And it's very impressive to see how they take ownership and save their shelters, but also the ones of their neighbors in case of need. And for me, an amazing example was in December, we had a huge fire in one of our camps, and almost 400 volunteers from all 13 different camps came came to the rescue and helped. And they made sure the fire was slowed down and largely contained even before the first fire trucks from the government could reach the fire. So in that sense, we also see how they can grow and how they can take ownership and do the first response themselves without us coming to the rescue all the time. These were my few examples. I know I was not allowed to do slides, but I wanted to quickly show the pictures because I think it makes more sense what it looks like.
Please
so I
go
think,
ahead.
Sure. So I think the community-led initiatives maybe speak for themselves. But so this is the stream. So the water flows underneath, and you see that the community has been growing their own vegetables and fruits along the stream. And this is the picture of the fire response. So you see this is all the community teams themselves that do the fire response and the tuk-tuks that they use also in the camps. All right, I think that was it for me.
I think that's amazing examples of how, like, it seems like the impact was really decided by the fact that they were all community-led. And yeah, no, it's great to see when things work as well, and not just the challenges that we continue to discuss. Fernanda, will you? Is it okay to keep the questions for a little bit, because I want to give Chloe some time as well to just share some example from ACTED's Syria programming. So Chloe will just share a little bit about how they implement a gender perspective in their community engagement programming. So I'll hand over to you now, Chloe, and then we can take questions after.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Great. So hello, everyone. My name is Chloe Mandelbaum. I'm project coordinator in the mission of ACTED all of Syria, especially on CCCM. In Syria, we had to work around the dynamic of gender equality in our camps. We are handling multiple camps who basically most of the time have in between 10,000 to 15,000 individuals. And we came with some challenges due to the implementation of some activities. So I will introduce you a tool that we developed and that we are using. It's basically a small tool. It's a framework that aims to ensure that projects implemented in displacement camps do not unintentionally reinforce gender inequalities, but instead contribute to the empowerment of women and balance gender dynamic. So this tool has been made based on the OECD gender marker, but also the Do No Harm approach by the UN. It's a small questionnaire with designed to be practical and accessible for use in focus group discussion with beneficiaries before implementing any project. This tool should be seen as a pair of glasses, basically, that you put on your face. And we will call them like gender analysis glasses, let's say. And these glasses, basically, they allow us to, through questioning, raise the dynamic and possible factor not taken in consideration with regard to gender in our project. So the first part, and I think the Syria Forum will share it on the chat, but it's basically access to resources and opportunities to evaluate from your focus group discussion. Then we have division of labors and power dynamics, safety and protection, and cultural and social norm. Economic empowerment and sustainability. So all these parts are questions that will give you some visibility and open details that you didn't really maybe pay attention, and that will assure you actually to have a great overview, but also sometimes, and I will give you some example of success that we have, how this tool help us in our mission. So, for example, in one of my camp called Aresha in northeast Syria, before implementing the initiative to hire female guards in the camp, we have conducted FGDs with women to assess their existing roles actually in the camp. So we discovered that women were already engaged in physically demanding work, such as waste collection and carrying heavy material for mud houses, for example. And this insight challenged, we had the assumption that security roles, such as guard, were too physically demanding for women. That was the feedback we got from the guard men itself, but also from the community. So the project team engaged male members of the emergency committee that we have to discuss the realities of women's workload in the camp. So we used real conflict situation where women face challenges with male guards, and the conversation helped us to actually shift perspective on the feasibility of female guard. So when we use this questionnaire, it highlights to us that actually women will be happy to be guards, but that's not something we had in mind. And the fact that this questionnaire gives us the visibility of, oh, but men think that guard security is a heavy work when actually they are doing mud houses or waste collection, was the dynamic that helped us to find argument after to negotiate. So as a result, mixed gender teams were introduced, and that was ensuring that men also took the responsibilities, such as a refilling generator, like we didn't disturb the whole system, because that was something, for example, specific that men were doing. And despite initial resistance, we have anticipating cultural barrier and engaging with male stakeholders, and this allow actually the transition to be accepted fully. So now we have female guard, and it's seen as something normal. Where another example is during FGDs with a women committee this time, the team sought to understand the gap in services they faced. So one of the key insights was the need for HENA services, as most vocational training programs has historically focused on sewing, despite the camp already have numerous tailor. So that was not making sense actually to go for a tailor. So instead of imposing a predetermined vocational program, the project first engaged with women to define services that will benefit them. So after discussion with the community and the committees and the partner, we agree that vulnerable women were identified for training. So one participant, a 19-year-old divorced woman who was marginalized by her divorce, was selected to receive the training of HENA. And over 2 months, she gained confidence and skill with empowerment, and she ultimately decided to start her own businesses. So now she's generating income from her services. And this case highlights the importance of community-driven vocational program, of course, but tailored to women's needs and market demands. So again, if we didn't have done these first FGDs with this questioning with a woman, then we would not have realized that actually going for sewing wasn't really not what was needed in the camp. It's like a bit of a diagnostic of the situation of your camp. And sometimes, you know, you implement really quickly your programming because you have a timeline, because you need to purchase, you need to supply everything. And this will make you actually repeat programming that are not adjust as your context. So using this framework before implementing a project, it can really prevent unwanted consequences and ensure that initiatives generally contribute to gender empowerment rather than reinforcing existing inequalities. By integrating gender-sensitive planning, engaging stakeholders, and incorporating feedback from FDGs, project can be designed to support both men and women effectively, and fostering inclusive and sustainable development with displacement camp. And again, this grid, it can be adjusted, of course, but it's also really aimed to be used with men, with youth, with any kind of implementation that you're making. Also because you can get the point of view of the others on the same topic, so it's quite interesting. That's it on my side. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chloe. And I tried to share the tool here, but I'm not able to for some reason, so I will share it with them on the platform after this. It's a very actual simple and practical roadmap for the steps to take. So I think it can be very useful kind of as a checklist, because there's a lot of things to think about. So if you can keep it as you have done in your tool, I think it's super helpful, when in the field and designing programming. So Fernanda, you're first up for a question. Who is the question for? Please go ahead.
Hi everyone. Okay, so a reflection and / question and open to the panelists. When we talk about community engagement and raising the voices of the communities, there are many layers for that, as we know. In my own perspective, I think the ultimate goal should be accountability and advocacy. So when we are in contexts that we have, no matter what kind of site, and I was recently in Brazil doing community engagement in sites here, how can we better handle the dilemmas that when the government is funding us, CCCM agencies, and we have the voices of the communities collected, documented, solid evidence, and we put on the table of our agencies, and then we run into another problem, which is internal problem, is we don't want to bother, we don't want to risk our relationship with our donor. So how do we address that? Thank you.
It's a very good question. Does anyone want to answer? Any recommendations? Have you been in the same situation? Just raise your hand or no, I mean it's a it's a very good question, Fernanda, and I also don't know how to answer that one. Ruxandra, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very interesting topic, I think. I would say that indeed, to begin with a comment, Fernanda, with regards to community engagement, I do agree a lot about it. Is very related to accountability and but definitely, I would say also with regards to CCCM specifically, it's a lot also about participation. So of course, one aspect is raising the voices of the people, if we even have the ability to do that. I think, again, as you were also mentioning, maybe that's more related, of course, to advocacy. Raising their voices, yes, although I do believe that the communities themselves have the full capacity to do that as well. I don't think they require as much support as we think, or that we give ourselves the responsibility for. Of course, we are there to facilitate this, but again, I think advocacy is a better way to describe it. However, I do strongly believe that our role is very important with regards to engaging the community to participate also. in the governing of their sites, if you'd like, and generally, yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Potentially looking also at more inclusiveness in those functions as well. And I'm saying this also thinking about the the very important question that you pose with regards to, and possibly complicated, to respond to the question that you pose with regards to what do you do when you can't really discuss certain things given the profile of your donor? Well, I mean, to begin with, all of us here are humanitarian agencies. We have to respect certain principles. I think it's very complicated, of course, when your donor are the authorities, and potentially that's problematic. Hopefully, if and when they do fund an organization that is humanitarian, they also expect that those principles be upheld. So, of course, it's a very tricky situation. However, we do have a responsibility as humanitarians to adhere to certain ways of working. So, while in a very difficult situation, I would imagine that given the work, you should be able to put matters on the table as they are. I think that is one of our main functions. As you say, you see community engagement as raising the voices of the people and advocacy. Well, then I think humanitarian principles are clear to that respect. So I would encourage full force. Of course, that's a personal advice. Let's not attribute it to any organization or professional function. Personal advice. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else has the, and of course, we're in a circle here amongst friends, and I hope everyone is very welcome and free to discuss their opinions, additional to the ones of their organizations. But I wonder if other colleagues have other perspectives on this matter.
I think it can be easier to go full force as well if there's power in numbers. So if you have a network of other agencies in your location that also are trying to engage the community and raise their voices, to join forces in the advocacy is easier than going alone as an organization. This is my experience. For example, when I was working in Lebanon many years ago, starting a consortium and conducting advocacy as a group of organization, you're generally stronger than just an agency alone. Would be my advice. I don't know if anyone else has any advice from their work. I also want to take this opportunity to ask you, now that we're discussing the community engagement aspect specifically in the new strategy, do you feel equipped to go ahead and engage the community in implementing the strategy? Do you have everything that you need? If you don't consider funding situation, but when it comes to tools and guidance and resources and support in any other way, is there anything that you need from us as a community engagement forum, as a network? But do you have everything you need going forward? What do you want us to focus on this year? Chloe.
Yeah, I think, well, it's a bit tricky as we talk about it at the beginning of this call. And as you have presented in this introduction, new strategy of CCCM and this aim to have more gender equality in the camp and to work on this level. Due to the current situation with some grant, it's a bit tricky, because for us it was really the direction to take for Syria, especially that, well, we are still unsure of how the situation will evolve. Me, I'm mostly working and focusing on North Syria, and as you know, there is this Kurdish people with women who are really, really afraid to lose their right, actually, and who are not, for example, wearing the hijabs. It's like a melting pot, a really big mix, but for them there is really this scary time of going back to more extremism, religion, and this is something we really wanted to have in the camp, with cultural acceptance, that women are free to choose to wear or to not wear it, but going for more actually equality. And this is a bit tricky with the current situation and the politics around the world right now to be fully comfortable to speak about gender, because there is directly this, it's a feeling that I share personally, but there is this feeling of opposition. So for me, and the aim of using this tool, I will really think that working on this subject are essential, but working on this subject with men without them noticing, without presenting directly things, oh, we will work on equality. No, with finding new key messages, new way to approaching them through the paternity, to the work, to other subjects, without putting on names such as gender and equality, will be maybe one of the success to actually implement this kind of activity without disturbing even before actually having any impact. So yeah, that will be my goal this year, and also because I think now we need to rethink how we write our proposal for some donors. So maybe using a different lexic and trying to find this kind of strategy is a plus. Over from my side.
Yes, thank you. There's a lot of good points. Anyone else have any thoughts on what is needed to focus on this year from our side as a community of practice on community engagement? Anything you want us to bring to the forefront, to work more on, to develop resources on, to discuss in our next community coffee and chat sessions? Or are you all set? I mean, that would be wonderful.
I also need a bit more time to realize. Oh, sorry, I had the wrong one. So I also need a bit more time to realize what the new strategy is and see how we can incorporate it. And I'm sure then questions will pop up, and we'll come back to you for more questions.
Yeah, great.
For now, I think
please do anything. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the funding situation will determine a lot of changes in the short term, but I think it's also an opportunity to advocate for community engagement and how that can be cost efficient in the long term. Any questions about the strategy to Ruxandra while we have her here, or about the examples from Emma or Chloe? Or anyone else want to share any examples? Just going through the list of squares. No, perfect. Okay. And thanks everyone for joining us today, and please do reach out to me, to the forum, if you do have any questions later on. There is a question here: can we come up with more innovative tools that can help our implementation to cut across different groups of people and easy to manage with local resources. Christopher. Have a look at the CCT. Yes. Christopher, do you want to tell us specifically what you're looking for? Or is Tom's suggestion about the CCT helpful? And yes, go ahead, Christopher.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon.
How are
I am
you?
Christopher from CCCM Nigeria, Borno State. We developed a tool called the community-based theater tool, where we use drama, storytelling, and shared experience to engage community. You know, what we do is we create stories from beneficiaries' experiences. Then we come up with a script. They are the actors. They're acting in front of an audience. So it's easy to engage them, easy to tell their story. You use local resources. So it doesn't really cost much because the project is based on the community. It is the community that is implementing. Your own is just to guide them through, and it has a sustainability plan. Even after you're done with your own implementation, the community can continue where you stop. So that's one of the tools we developed here in Nigeria, in Borno State.
That sounds amazing. Is it something that you can share here, the tool?
It's possible. Let me share.
Yeah, that would be great. And do you use it to discuss any of the issues that they have in the camp, or?
Yes,
Okay.
it cut across different sectors. It cut across different topics. You can discuss protection issue, GBV issue, education. It cuts across different sectors.
This is great. Yeah,
It's more. You can use it for
sounds like
awareness creation. You can use it for campaigns. Yes.
It sounds like a good format. Be great if you could share it here, yeah, and we can also come back to you for maybe some specific examples, if possible. Anyone else have any examples or questions? If not, I will stop recording. But thanks to everyone for joining, and thanks to Ruxandra and Emma and Chloe and Christopher as well for sharing. I'll remember to share this tool now from Chloe. So watch this space. We will post again on LinkedIn and our website when we meet again for the next coffee and chat session. So take care, everyone, and have a nice day and evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.